The state of everything for you. The state of everything for you. It's a birthday for Matthias. It's the birthday episode. Hooray!
Huzzah! Tomorrow. It's early.
Yeah,
Here
but
we
we're
are.
celebrating now, baby.
Yeah.
I'm celebrating with nice green tea because I'm detoxifying.
Still, we're on the Stone iterations here. I forget what one I brought last time, but this is the new one. Delicious IPA.
That's so great. So what do you got planned for the big birthday holiday?
Nothing, man. Absolutely nada.
Right.
I'm in Boston. That's my birthday present, I guess. That's what I'm trying to rationalize here. I might go down to Providence with well, Patrick's gonna my friend, you can't see him, but I have a friend and his name is Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
He's got such a good surprise. I just can feel it. He's really bad keeping secrets, but I'm just super stoked about the surprise party he's going to throw me this weekend. No, but I might go down to Providence and have a gay old time down there, potentially on Sunday.
Keep it gay.
I think I'm realizing I don't hate clinic, and I really don't hate family medicine.
I'm sorry?
I said keep it gay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Gay, happy, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously.
So what's going on in the world, Matthias? Tell me. I live under a rock.
My gosh, put me on the spot here. I'm just gonna respond to. I'm gonna look at. I'm gonna read our friend's text about the DNC blocking Fox News. I assume that's what we're gonna probably jump into. My takeaway from that article is that they're saying Fox and Trump are in bed together. That's obvious. So why not take advantage of the opportunity to deliver the DNC message to that audience? Very true. He's right about that.
So what we're referring to here is an NPR article that was released today by Jessica Taylor. It says DNC bars Fox News from hosting 2020 primary debates. Basically, the DNC, who has no history of being weird or corrupt or horrible or anything like that, they said something about how they didn't like President.
How about the? I mean, is the DNC, is the RNC better? I mean, they're both pretty equivalent.
Oh, I didn't say one was better than the other. I said I have sour grapes about the DNC rigging the last Democratic primary, but that's neither here nor there. The thing is that Fox News is basically a propaganda arm for the Trump administration, which it's a problem because it's essentially state TV. It's become that. And so the DNC, rightly, they have a bit of a bone to pick with that. So now they're not going to let their candidates be in front of a Republican audience, which would be really good. And I think it would be good to have conservatives grill these people as well, instead of just having your Anderson Coopers and Don Limes, of the world, interviewing them instead or moderating their debates. So I see both sides of this issue. I see that the DNC is angry and they're like sticking it to Fox News, but it's dumb because they could potentially sway some voters, which is bigger in the long run than having a bone to pick with a media company. It's more about let's get these candidates in front of Republican eyes so maybe we can turn the tides. Instead, they're just going to go with the guy they know, and they see him, ranting like a raving lunatic at the CPAC and all these things. They're like, oh, that's my guy, though, so I'm going to vote for him. Instead, there might be some real alternatives on the left.
All true. I mean, I see that rationale as well, but I guess is the longer term game, maybe making a point that Fox News is not really news and it's kind of a joke of an organization in terms of being, if their goal is at all to represent reality objectively or maybe even accurately to a certain extent. I mean,
I've talked about this with you before. Does any corporate, big media company are they really there to portray things accurately and fair and balanced like they say? Or are they actually in it to make money? And I think when you look at how organizations work and how companies work, it's about profit. It's about the bottom line. I think that's where journalism has sadly failed, where, you start seeing this like veer towards clickbaity nonsense because that's what will sell. That's what sells. Like, you say sex sells in film. Well, you have these, like, they promote these debates on CNN like they're wrestling matches now because that's what sells. They want to make it like a big show, a big charade, which it's become, unfortunately. So I don't know if big money journalism is really out for the truth. I don't know if truth and money can kind of, how do we grapple with that? Where do we draw the line? I don't know if they're codependent. Is that the right word?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so let's not forget also CNN is like hosting Jerome Corsi. Like the guy is on Alex Jones spouting out, pushing the whole Seth Rich conspiracy for like a year, basically. Now people are suing about it and they're trying to, make it like it went to complete hell. That was also pushed on Fox News, Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson. But CNN is still bringing him in and he's still spouting out conspiracy theories and just, the guy he's not credible. And I don't know why CNN is still bringing him in as, a talking, I mean, it's to make money. So you're right. But,
Brian Williams, he lied about being shot at in a helicopter and he gets rewarded with his own show now. I mean, I know it's a trivial thing in the long run, but it says a lot about someone's character if you're going to like.
Well, so that actually, there's a really interesting, Malcolm Gladwell did a really interesting podcast on this. And it has more to do with like memory and how your memory, can change over the years. And it just being a factor of human nature. And less so much about him, I've got to listen to it again, and maybe I'm selling it poorly, but he made it sound like he made a very good argument as to how, the more you tell stories, slight variations can get imprinted into your mind over years and years of telling this story. We all have incentive kind of to maybe misremember things or it just kind of happens over time and small details or just details in general change. And it's less him trying to, actively mislead and tell a story that didn't happen. But it's really also has a lot to do with us and how we interpret stories and the different standards that we hold other people to account that we might not realize that we do the same thing every day when we look back on our own histories and maybe inflate certain parts of certain stories. Anyway, that's Brian Williams. But the point is that, yes, nobody's perfect. And this is a certain argument about, is there objective truth? And I think nowadays people wouldn't say that. Maybe I'm a bit naive and idealistic. I think that there is. And I think that on principle or in theory, a company could make money off of telling the truth, but it's a matter of how you tell the truth. I mean, I like PBS and that's pretty boring and a lot of people don't like it, but I find it to be, I like that it's dry. I like that it's pretty square and it just says what it is. And I trust that. And I like that. I prefer to not have all the noise and distraction and bullshit that happens on other more mainstream corporate news.
It's public. I mean, it's public. That's a huge difference. CNN is in it for big money and PBS isn't. And that's
Well, it's socialism. It's socialism. PBS is socialism, and so we should probably just end that and get rid of any public television because it's all socialism and it's the devil. It's the devil, and we need to get rid of it.
we're never going to have a socialist country, okay?
Yeah.
So yeah, and this is why I believe that certain aspects of socialism, well, it's not that I believe it. There are certain aspects of socialism that work in our society today. PBS and public broadcasting is one of them. And yeah, I think there's more room for objective truth, if you want to call it that, in those kinds of those outlets. Because that's a good point that you bring up about objective truth. It's a massive topic. And I would argue that there's no room for objective truth anymore. I don't know if there should be. But what I'm saying is, and hear me out on this.
That's a post-truth. So basically, this is what comes down to. People say we live in the post-truth age, right? Like truth doesn't matter.
See, I don't believe that.
On the left, you have my personal truth. It's my own. This is my truth, and I mean that people just say that, and maybe they don't mean it. They mean it one way as an experience, and it can sound a different way though. And it can be bad if they apply it to different things. And the right, has probably got, I don't know what they think about the truth. The truth is whatever Donald Trump says it is. It's like a postmodern like thing that there are books written about post-truth age. And I think that it's very dangerous. I mean, if you can't talk about, there cannot be objective facts on which we can agree and discuss and engage with about the world, then that's like weird. What the hell does that mean? What are the implications of that?
Well, see, this is the thing. I think it's the answer is somewhere in the middle, right? I think that we need to understand subjective truth and realize that people's perspectives matter. Like for example, the transgender debate. Like if you say that a man can never be a woman biologically, but you're born in a man's body and you go through the transition and becoming a trans person, and you, by all definitions, by everything that you can essentially become a woman. But there will always be some that argue that it's like, but you're not the true thing, you're not the real thing, you weren't born like that, God didn't make you that way, right? So the right would say the objective truth is that you're a man. The left would say the subjective truth is that, well, you're a man that became a woman and therefore you are now a woman. And there's this whole argument about the feminine penis and all that, which I've been really fascinated about. I think it's an interesting argument where there is such a thing, essentially. I
do not know anything about this.
Yeah, ContraPoints talks about it. I follow this awesome trans lady who does a really hilarious, like, philosophical show on YouTube. Way more high. It's not as lo-fi as this one. I'll just put it at that. She's definitely very. It's a very flamboyant show, and it kind of reflects her personality, and I love it. So ContraPoints, check her out. But she has this whole thing about the feminine penis, where it's like if you are a woman, if you're a man that becomes a woman, and someone is attracted to you as a woman, and you have a penis, it's a feminine penis, and you're still into the womanly aspect of who she has become and who she is. And it gets into this really interesting thing where, like, I think it's, once again, somewhere in the middle where, like, you can love someone for who they are, where gender doesn't mean anything, but it's also, you have to think about things like procreation and if you want kids and all that, like, does that make you a transphobe if you don't want to date a trans person because you want to have, a more traditional life, whatever. That's a whole other rabbit hole that I wasn't really trying to get into. But my point is about subjective truth is that I think the left is more about subjective truth. The right is more about objective truth. But the problem with the right is their objective truth is clouded by this God emperor mentality on one side. Like, Trump is everything. He's my daddy lord. And then on the other side, it's the religious nuts, right? It's the people who just kind of vote with their faith, which I think is dangerous. Like, I'm a person of faith. I believe in things, but I wouldn't vote. I mean, like, I think Jesus would be a socialist. So I think part of that is like, I believe in certain aspects of socialism, but I also think, you know, there's certain aspects of whatever, like faith and politics, they should mix in some more moral kind of value based systems, but not in a governing way at all. I think that's exactly what America is supposed to be about. And the right has that wrong. So their objective truth is saying that, you know, evolution is fake and all that, which isn't an objective truth. It's an objective truth to their bias. So this is a long-winded thing that I'm trying to come around to saying that both sides believe in truth, but they're both filtered through an intense bias. And so that's where I come to the conclusion that objective truth is not real anymore, because everything is so clouded with layers upon layers upon layers of bias that we have to go through years of meditation or like doing something radical to clear that, like to basically have like a minimalist Zen mentality to say, I have no bias anymore. Everything is biased. I mean, PBS does a good job of trying not to be biased, but they're still coming at it with a filter and a perspective. And it's an interesting argument, man, because this is a good topic for where we're at today.
Well, yeah, because everything is insane and nobody agrees about anything and whatever. But I think that, yes, you touch on a lot of different things. Separation of church and state, that's a core pillar of American government, for a very good reason. But I think that I hear, what about this? I disagree. I mean, I think that I think the people that you and I celebrate the most probably are individual people who, by the example of their lives and their work and their creation, lived fiercely independent, creative, unique lives, and they're free thinkers. And I think the people who are able to think freely and think intelligently and use the faculty of their own mind can agree on certain things. And I think it's because people start out, people are born with a blank slate, right? They're not born liberal or conservative. They just, over time, through society, their family, education, whatever, adopt these viewpoints. But I think there's plenty of opportunity for thoughtful independence, and even for people to be persuaded after the fact. I mean, I think that this Mueller report is really very important because, you know, there's going to be some people who don't believe it and don't want to, like, it doesn't matter. Nothing will shake their story that they've told themselves to be true in their own head, and they'll continue living and believing whatever they want to believe. But at the end of the day, no matter what, on the liberals or conservatives, the Mueller report right now, it needs to be said, the Mueller report is going to reflect the closest thing that we have to reality that happened in 2016. And that, I think, is really going to change a lot of people's, I think that has the potential to change a lot of people's politics. If you believe this story that may or may not come out, and to be honest, some of it might be classified and whatever. I mean, I'll stop shortly, but it's what these cases that litigating their way through courts right now. It's going to take years, and that's going to present its own narrative. So it's not just going to be like the Mueller report is the be all end all answer to everything of life, you know, since post 2016, but it is going to tell all parts of the story, and we need to accept it right now before we even hear what it is as the truth. I think simple.
Well, the president's doing a pretty, I don't know if it's effective, but he's throwing out the all caps with the witch hunt. And so a lot of his followers just lap it up like seals. So I don't know if that's a thing that's going to have like that. I don't know if that's going to have an effect on the world. You know what I mean? Like what that's going to do. Yeah, I think that will be some aspect of truth. I know there's some people out there that say he's biased, but I don't think that's true at all. I mean, pretty much before this whole thing started, both sides were very clear about saying that they trusted this guy, Robert Mueller.
Oh yeah.
He's a well-trusted guy that goes back decades of both parties trusting. So, I don't know if you could find a better guy to do it. I don't know much about him, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing though. The truth is we'll see, man. I don't know how, nobody knows how catastrophic or whatever this is going to be. Like, we don't know yet.
I think that's the whole point, though, is like, because that's the whole point of saying now, before it actually comes out, that before you hear whether it's good or it's bad or it's, a flamboyant story or it's a dull story, so that can't change your what you think about the validity of it. You just tell yourself now, I am going to accept what this guy says because he has marshaled the full resources of the United States government and the power of the force of law and well capable, an army of attorneys and intelligence officers. Like, this guy knows what's happening and what happened. I think it's pretty simple. I mean, people are going to come by and people are going to twist it and this and that, but if you're going to be honest with yourself about like the facts and what's happened, I don't know, but people can convince themselves.
But see,
I don't know.
You're like an old-fashioned American that believes in the sanctity of our institutions, and I think there is a very sizable portion, not just in the Trump camp, but on all aspects, on all sides of the political spectrum, there's a very sizable portion of people that are going to say, you know what, any intelligence agency, I'm sorry. I mean, you can say they're dumb or look, I know, but these are the same intelligence agencies that have given us sketchy, I know, so you're rolling your eyes, but this must be brought up because the CNNs of the world would like to say that you're a conspiracy theorist if you question these things because the intelligence agencies are working with them potentially. So what we're saying is, you have these NSA, all these the spying on the phones and the drone wars and the Saddam Hussein, weapons of mass destruction. These are all massive failures of the intelligence system. And I know you can say they're hiccups and they're just parts of the American experiment, and perhaps they are. But you could also point to these being a broader shift of, not being able to trust these people in power, like the MK Ultra shit in the 50s. They were just giving people acid. I mean, there's been a lot of sketchy things, man. There's been so many sketchy things that you would have a better idea of what they are because you're a history buff, and I'm just an insane person ranting on YouTube. But I think that I don't want to trust. I mean, I know you want to trust the intelligence agencies, like, what they're going to say is gospel. And I would agree that the Mueller report is going to be incredibly important for our democracy. However, I'm not going to be the Trump SEAL guy that laps up whatever the intelligence agencies give me, because at this point they fucked up so much that I don't know if I can completely trust everything they're going to do, because I don't know if their interests are my interests. And I really believe that as a skeptic or a conspiracy theory on the left.
See, but that doesn't. I mean, these are people who are risking their. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you can believe that there are people, that there's a wall in the CIA building of stars without names of people, and that represent people who've died in the service, in the field of duty as undercover CIA agents, and to protect the sources and methods of the United States government. They have died anonymously, but they took that opportunity because they want to protect America. And I think that if you believe that people would do that, and that actually happens, and that that's reality, that there are institutions that those people are willing to die for, and that, basically protecting America. I mean, that's the thing. Maybe that's a problem, that there's no, not advocating for a draft and for forced military service. But I think that if we had to do that, and everybody understood what it meant to try to, defend your country and make sure that it's safe, and what all the dangers that were out there, then people would believe that there can be people in government who will do things for the right reasons.
But people,
they've made mistakes, yeah, but people make up institutions, and I don't think that these institutions are corrupted. I understand that there are intelligence failures with Saddam, with weapons of mass destruction. My God, that was like, I understand that, but you need to understand the pathology too. And I'll just bracket this whole argument with just a brief history of the intelligence community through the 90s and then after 9/11. After the end of the Cold War, nobody wanted to pay for the military because it was like, we just paid for the military for 40 years. This war is over. Let's freaking, let's get a peace dividend. So we cut back on a little bit on the defense budget, and kind of sat pretty for a decade because we were like, we beat the Russians, the Cold War is over, what is important? And some people were like terrorism and diffuse stateless actors, and then other people were like, no, the big state, the old major powers, Russia, and there was this disagreement for about a decade. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda and Islamic extremists, we're going to call it, we have to call it what it is, Islamic extremist terrorism, whatever, Al-Qaeda, whatever. They started blowing up shit, and the intelligence community was understaffed, and not understaffed, but under-resourced, and they didn't really know if this was even a threat. And then also Bill Clinton and Lewis, the director of the FBI, hated each other, but because Clinton was under investigation for the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, and Louis Freeh was an overzealous, he was universally recognized as a bad FBI director, and he was a poor manager. So the FBI was not in good shape. And if Clinton could have fired this guy, maybe we would have been able to turn the FBI around and be a little bit more capable before September 11th. That's a whole different story. But so you have, and so Clinton bombed Osama bin Laden, tried to bomb a training camp in Africa and also in Afghanistan, I think, and then bombed a chemical weapons facility in Africa. And people are like, you're doing this to distract us from Lewinsky. That's what everyone said.
Sounds like Trump.
Sure enough, September 11th happens from Osama bin Laden, and the intelligence agency is like, damn, this happened. How did we miss this? We are going to reform and go into overdrive. And by the way, throughout all the 90s, Saddam Hussein actually was acquiring lots of, or after the Gulf War, we had people who, Bush 1's Gulf War. I believe that they went in and they were like, some American soldiers were like collecting radiation on their uniforms or whatever, and they realized Saddam Hussein was way farther along in producing weapons of mass destruction, and that just caught us by surprise in the 90s. So then, a couple of years later, but also Clinton bombed, after UN sanctions didn't work out, Clinton bombed all of Saddam Hussein's weapons facilities. So then we went dark. We had no idea what they were doing. And after September 11th, they're all freaking out. And Bush has a very simplistic worldview, unilateralist, doesn't care about international institutions. He did later, went in on his own. No planning for reconstructing that country after we destroyed everything and everything went to hell. So, and then you can talk about Snowden. That's a different thing. I would happy to be going to later, but that is the response after that is a succession of mistakes and learning. And they're not perfect. Everyone's trying to figure out what's going on in the world. Right now, DARPA is investing money in algorithms that are going to solve the world's complexity. So maybe once we have solved the world's complexity and everything that's going on around the world, the American government will be flawless, and then we'll trust it, and nobody will have any problems with, about whether or not there's conspiracy theories. There'll be a whole different slew of conspiracy theories at that point. To be American is to believe in some conspiracies, apparently. I mean, people distrust their government so much. This government was founded, this country was founded on skepticism of authority, and some people take it to a crazy level. It's like an American pastime gone on to full-blown hysteria, and you've got Alex Jones.
He was hilarious, by the way. Did you see him on Joe Rogan? He's talking about some really crazy shit. He's a comedian. I mean, his whole thing is it went too far. I don't think he was ever supposed to be taken seriously, that guy. I mean, he broadcast from his basement in Austin about, lizard people. I mean, you shouldn't ban him from all the platforms. I don't think he's worth depersonalizing, because then it just gives him more fuel to the fire. It's like, oh, this guy's a real deal. He's a real guy you got to watch out for, real political firebrand. Dude, he's a fucking joke. And it's just like his whole life is one extended joke that now has become serious because people like you hate him and think that he's a newsman.
Look, people, I don't pay attention to him. I could care less about the guy.
He's hilarious.
I think that it's absolutely repugnant that he goes around saying that Sandy Hook is a conspiracy.
That's the worst
theory.
thing.
I think that is abominable. I think he's spouts out racist crap all the time. In Joe Rogan, he talks about, Asians are fierce, bloodthirsty warriors, and so are Native Americans and Mexicans. I mean, he just was saying shit. But people listen to him and believe him, though. I mean, do you have a duty to? I mean, that's kind of dangerous. You say, oh, but I mean, if he is telling lies,
well, is that a lie though?
And those lies, I mean, if there, that's where you get back to, is there objective or subjective truth? You say enough lies on television. You say that there's a pedophilia sex cult is operating out of a pizza operation in DC because of the Clintons somehow, and some guy goes in there with a gun and shoots it up, or wants to shoot it up to investigate on his own, because we're loosening gun laws. Donald Trump just rescinded some order that Obama made about not selling guns to people who have mental health issues. And that's what you get. So you have people spouting out lies, and you have, really lax gun laws. And then people want to go shoot up synagogues and send bombs in the mail. And I mean, it's generalizations, because Trump kind of was the one who instigated some. I mean, but it's all crazy. Everything's crazy.
Well, riling people up is never, it's, not recommended. And he definitely does that, because he just gets all red and he just shouts, like I said, in his basement. But going back to the whole racist thing, I mean, is talking about like certain, cultures being more of like a warrior mentality. I mean, I saw that too. I think it's easy to like pick apart and say, oh, this is a racist thing and it's a horrible thing to say. But I mean, like, I think Joe Rogan responded too, where it's like, well, they have a history of like the samurai code, and that was a very it's a warrior class. And the Native American people, they had this fierce warrior mentality. It's not necessarily a racist thing to say. It's probably a bit slathered in bigotry and ignorance, sure. But it's not like he said, like, kill all someone. I'm not going to say anything like that, because then the YouTube algorithms are going to think I'm saying that. But, any kind of calling to violence, and obviously horrible, and it's against the law. But I think in the whole Sandy Hook thing,
you don't need to.
Obviously horrible, but my main point isn't about Alex Jones. My point here is that I want to say about something about the nature of conspiracy theories, though. Like, is being skeptical nowadays, if you go against the narrative of what the news media is telling you, you are inherently labeled as a conspiracy theorist. And this started when the Bush invasion of Iraq. That was a big moment for this kind of like if you're going to go against, if you're going to like be skeptical of that, you're unpatriotic, you're un-American. If you're going to be skeptical of, the Las Vegas shooting, like where's the proof of this? Where's that? Oh my God, like you're an insane person. You're a horrible conspiracy theorist if you have any kind of questioning mentality to anything. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think Alex Jones should be taken seriously. I think what he's doing is kind of I don't get it. I don't get all of it, or any of it really. But I don't think he's I don't think he's like the devil incarnate though. And I just think that he's someone that took this whole conspiracy thing to an extreme and he benefited off of it. But I think if you look at just regular old people who question reality that you want to maybe call reality, but we could just call it what the narrative is. If you're going to question what the narrative is, that immediately means you're a conspiracy theorist nut job now in this world. And I don't like that because there's a lot of shit that happens. I know that, we're fed certain things that aren't true. It's happened time and time again where you have to kind of look at the deeper issues. You have to look at the deeper truth to things and not just let like these stupid journalists that are out there that just like take tweets now and they use the tweets as their evidence for things. I mean, the world isn't lived on social media. The world is way more complex than that. And that's why I think news organizations that try to figure out the bigger picture or do more on the ground reporting and less opinion, I think those are the news organizations of the future, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, so to your point that if you disagree with the story that's told, you say people get ridiculed as a conspiracy theorist, but what story is it? Because, and who's telling it? Is because, I mean, our president is spouting out one narrative that many people disagree with. And does that make them crazy? Does that make them a conspiracy theorist? Or does the people who disagree with what I would argue the legal community most intelligent, upstanding, objective experts across a whole multitude of fields and a majority of the American people and the rest of the world, I think, believe, then are they, conspiracy theorists, the people who disagree with that? I mean, I told that unfairly, but my point is that there are two narratives right now. I guess on any different number of things, I'm just simplifying this to Trump Russia, because that's all apparently I am capable of thinking about. But my point is that there are multiple perspectives to go on, and assuming, like, just lumping everything into some like monolithic mainstream cultural boogeyman story, I guess it depends on what it is that we're specifically talking about, whether it's government or democracy, or what's the level of importance here. But I think that there are most of the time multiple perspectives, and people can believe what they want to believe, and that's okay. But just be willing to take some of the criticism that might come with certain beliefs. And nobody's going to say that you can't think that, but if you want to think that, then let's have a debate about the issues and what are the facts, and let's argue about the objective truth, because there has to be an objective truth about what is going on. And if more people think that you're right or you're wrong or something else because of that, then I guess so be it. I mean, I don't know.
I think it takes a balanced person and a balanced personality and someone who is going to be able to listen to both sides. To me, that's the ideal politician going forward, is not someone who's going to be an ideologue, not someone who's going to be stuck in his own corner. We have to elect people who are able to listen to all sides, to take information from all sides, to listen to facts, but also listen to feelings. This whole argument of like, my facts, facts don't care about your feelings. It's bullshit. Fuck Ben Shapiro. I don't give a shit about all that. I think that feelings are important too. And we have to merge the feelings with the facts, I think, because that's where good governance occurs. If you're you have to be an empathetic person. Like someone like Trump, at face value, has no ilk of an ounce of empathy in him. I think he probably has a bit of probably a bit of a sociopath, if I could diagnose him, which I'm not qualified to do so. But I think you have to have a care about the other side, or about all sides, and try to find the middle ground, kind of exist in the gray area,
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, or how, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but this is just where my mind went, but facts versus feelings on the, what are they just had a bunch of hearings on all these skeptics about God, getting the skeptics, the people that they're against for their children. God, it's the most embarrassing.
You got this, bud.
Do you not like the hearings that Bobby Kennedy Jr. is the biggest? He's a God, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, you were really bad.
Vaccines. Oh my God. Vaccine skeptics.
Yeah, I mean, I know people who are against. Dude, I've been on. Keep going about the vaccines, but I've been crazy.
That's my like. What is this fact? So you just said you need to take into consideration and feelings, and I think that is, you want a government that is compassionate and empathetic, and I think that we can all say that we want that. But I mean, this is a great debate. How do feelings factor into the vaccine?
Well, dude, so I mean, I had a talk with a buddy the other day, and it really made me think about something it's pretty dark. And this is the argument where feelings sometimes, maybe you're just crazy. Maybe it's insanity. Maybe it's not being rational. Maybe it's a deep fear of something. But I had the thought that, it's about cancer. Like, what if you can avoid cancer by just not simply getting diagnosed? Like, what if what if chemotherapy, like, I don't know, what if, I'm just saying, what if? Okay, here now I'm showing my true colors as a conspiracy theorist. I'll put my conspiracy theorist hat on, because what if there was already a cure for cancer, and what if it was a form of population control? See, that's a what if. Like, what if it doesn't, like, what if it's just all insane? Like, what if we're all dying already? Like, we have, every part of us is already dying, and there's probably already bits of cancer in every aspect of ourselves. What if, getting the whole chemotherapy thing just speeds it along, as opposed to just naturally having your body respond to things in different ways? And the reason I thought of that was because, like, it's based on the psychological model, where psychology is basically corrupt in this country, in the state at least, because the whole model of psychology is for you to never be cured. The whole model is inherently, you are diagnosed with something, and everybody has some mental issue. You're diagnosed with an issue, and you're going to receive help for it and treatment, but they're going to keep you on a chain, and they're going to keep pulling the chain because they're profiting off of it. So it inherently, once again, how do we, have the truth, and also, how do we have the truth in a capitalist society? That's a big point that I guess I want to make, because the truth is, you go let me just finish this point. You go get help you need treatment, and then you're done with the treatment, and then you move on with your life. But the model literally of psychology, I know this because I know psychologists in this state, and they've told me this. The entire model is that you get help, but you're never cured, because they make money off of you. And it made me think about a whole lot of other things. And I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's real, but I'm saying that this is a inherent ill, potentially evil in the system where people profit off of your insecurities and potentially end up killing you. All right, my conspiracy hat is off.
Yeah. I think that talk as far as psychology goes, people who believe that they can act upon, maybe don't. There are people who unconsciously believe that they are capable of changing their environment, and there are people who unconsciously just go through life feeling that their environment is affecting them and they are completely helpless to do anything about it. And I think that the latter, people who believe that the environment shapes them and they're incapable of doing anything about it, will likely tend to believe some of these conspiracy theories out there. I mean, this is another version of the Illuminati. And I mean, QAnon, who's got these people charts over these elites who just control everything over all of time, and they just pass all these institutions and mechanisms of power. Who benefits? What's the incentive? And come on, like, people leak about stories.
The elite benefits on your soul.
Great, yeah, the afterlife, and they can suck our souls, and but people, here's a very easy way to just look at most conspiracies. Human beings have much more incentive. First of all, they are mostly incapable of keeping secrets. We have institutions that are devoted to keeping secrets, and they can't do it. So human beings are incapable most of the time of keeping secrets, especially outside of these institutions like the intelligence agencies I'm thinking of. So to believe that even something like the moon landing or all research, the medical field of all, like, doctors, every doctor takes the Hippocratic oath, right? Like, do no harm or whatever. The fact that some idea that would potentially happen is just, so many people would have to keep that inside and not tell. I mean, so what are the incentives of that? And nobody a part of that had somebody who had a family member who had cancer, who they could have saved, and so that's one element of it. As far as psychology, I think that you got to look at studies, you got to look at the macro stuff. Donald Trump is the king of, I know this and people say this, and I think too often these days it's believing hearsay is that's not the right word for it, but so I would look at studies and retention and people who leave the system and doctors who get people out. I can't speak about the people that in that, but I think that, I don't know, some ways of looking things, you can just see, you can think that it interpret it that the world is an unruly, dangerous place and we are incapable of affecting it and making it better or really controlling our environment. Or you can think that we have capable people in most institutions who are fundamentally decent people, out for their own best interests and the interests of their neighbors and their fellow people out there. And you've got few bad actors who take advantage of the system, and that's why we need to have a rule of law present.
But it's the system, right? And this is what makes me sad, because I'm a capitalist. I do believe in capitalism. I think it's it's what we have, right? And it's important. But what's sad for me is I don't know if I can really see a completely capitalist system as one that is going to put its people first, man. I mean, this is the whole argument of why millennials value certain aspects of socialism, is because the idea of it is to kind of try to band together in some ways and to make a better tomorrow for us all, regardless of personal profit. And the way the system is set up, including the medical and psychiatric industries, it's a for-profit. These are for-profit industries, and they're making money. And I think I've spent enough years in different industries where I understand like what the goal is now. And the goal is always to be financially secure at the end of the day. As someone who wants to, be a free person as well, I need money. And I hate that. I hate that this is the way it is, because I don't know if we can really live a purely capitalistic lifestyle while also putting fellow man first, man and woman, and everyone in between. I'm talking about my genderqueer folk out there that are watching. So I love you. And everybody else. Like, we need to care about humanity in a capitalistic way. So how do we incentivize, good social work in a sense? I mean, how do we incentivize being good people? Because at the end of the day, it's not about being good, Matthias. This is why Trump won. Nobody gives a shit about being good. It's about winning. It's about winning. It's all about winning and being American and taking over the goddamn world, man. That's what it's all about, dude. It's just all a fucking joke.
I think that the discussion that this country is going through about things like our system and fairness and governance and equitability and accountability and truth is good, because I just think that we've been feeling pretty sure of ourselves the last 2 decades, thinking that we've had all the answers and that our system of government and our system of capitalism is the best and be all and inevitable, and it was always going to go this way, and we were number one, and there's no need to question any of these other things, and we're just going to not have a discussion about these things, and we're going to double down, and because this is true and we know it to be true, and there's no sense in editing or adjusting these thought patterns. And now we're going through a period of correction, but it's got to be within reason. I mean, I think that the fundamentals also hold true, that socialism doesn't really work in really any form that's ever existed.
Not pure socialism. I think exactly. A social democracy.
And pure capitalism doesn't work either. That's why you need a blending, and that's why you have conservatives and you have liberals. That's why these two modes of thinking about the world are beneficial. You have one side that's looking forward, and you have one side looking back, trying to keep and retain what's good, while also experimenting and adjusting to reality in the world as it is. So I think that I'm not sure where to go next, but
they're complementary. The left and the right are complementary. We need each other to coexist and to have a more robust democracy going forward. It's like men and women. We need to have men and women come together for a society to flourish. Doesn't mean we can't have the in-between. We can't have a little bit of the extreme, right? Feminazis and, these men's rights activists, MGTOW assholes. Like, there's room for everybody. But we have to understand that
there are basics that need to be respected. Capitalism, people have incentive to improve, themselves while also improving the welfare of people around them. And but at the end of the day, too, technology is changing, and people can evolve and think differently, and maybe there needs to be some extra steps. Maybe the system as it is, capitalism, doesn't have enough incentive to take into account the existential challenges of climate change and maybe technology, and let's also take into account that over the span of human history, whenever there's been an enormous wealth inequality, there's been disruption and violence and war. And maybe we should just remember that and not saying that there's going to be a revolution. It doesn't look like that, right now, and hopefully never. But let's just look around the world right now as it is, and maybe think that some of the things that we're seeing with populism and all just the disagreement and partisanship and just general insanity of American life right now might in some way be the result of massive amounts of wealth discrepancies and people's hopes for the future and their economic security for today. I don't know.
This is why populism isn't inherently a bad thing, because it's like people need to be spoken for, right? People need to be looked after. Just like I was saying, where you have to have the two sides come together, right? Like men and women have to come together. Liberals and conservatives have to come together. We can't live without the other, but we can't try to overpower the other either. Like if we just had a purely left-wing world or a purely right-wing world, it'd be supremely fucked up. It's got to be we've got to be able to reach across the aisle in all senses. And that's where populism comes into it too. The elites have to fucking listen to the common man, because there's a lot of trends that show that, common folk aren't being spoken for, right? And they're not being looked after, which is why we have, insane candidates come to the forefront. We don't have to have insanity. We can have compromise, and we can have everybody's voice heard. And that's the key going forward. It has to be balanced, and it has to be a complementary society where you have, both sides of the aisle understanding that I have a perspective and you have a perspective, and we have to coexist. We have to come together on a compromise that's going to meet most of both of our demands. That's the problem with where we are right now. Nobody wants to do that because everybody only thinks that they're right, and the other side is either racist and evil or homophobic or something, or authoritarian and insane and just a complete nut job, socialist commie. So it's a big problem, but I see that there's hopefully hope on the horizon. I mean, yeah, like I think it would be good to have Fox News. I mean, Fox News is horrible, but conservative media outlets need to have more Democrats on or liberals, and so-called liberal outlets have to have conservative viewpoints too. We can't shut down conservative voices on campuses because we think they're fascist, because then you become the fascist. And we can't, it's good to have people like Tulsi Gabbard going on Tucker Carlson. Like, it's a good thing, I think, to have that kind of debate, because it shows that, real progressives can be, candidates that conservatives can vote for and get behind.
Yeah, and it's also real good that Tulsi Gabbard is saying that, equivocating and saying what Russia did to the United States in 2016, the United States does to plenty of other countries around.
It's true.
AKA engaging in hybrid warfare. That's not true. And information operations and psychological operations on a massive scale in other countries.
You're missing the point, Matthias. I mean,
that's just what she is. That truth? Is that a truth or a fault? I mean, she said that. That's an outrageous thing to say.
I don't see it as that outrageous.
Very clearly serves the interests of not the United States government, not of the truth. Of the people who are members of the government, and for people who care about the rule of law in this country.
You're a history guy. You should know better than this. Like, look at Vietnam. That was way worse than any kind of hybrid warfare the Russians ever did to us. And we completely shat on countries, man. We've done it in South America, Central America. I mean, you can say, oh, dude, the Russians, they did this whole bad thing. Oh, the Red Scare, the Russians. Like, the point is, our history is not perfect. We can't just say that, oh, Americans or whatever, whenever we go abroad, it's always going to be good and fun and rainbows and unicorns. We fuck shit up. We're still doing it in the Middle East. It doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't. But there's also more than just America is this like boogeyman, terrible person.
Of course there is. She's not saying that it's not terrible, but we have done terrible things.
But okay, well,
like Trump, he was going on the campaign trail. When Trump was on the campaign trail and he was saying, oh, well, we did it too. All these people are like, oh, how can you say that? Because they're part of the military-industrial complex that
okay, the military.
They feed off of this, though. They feed off of it. They feed off of getting your grubby little American fat fingers and putting McDonald's all over the fucking planet and bombing weddings to smithereens. People like that in this country. And you think that we're all fucking perfect and saintly, and we're all, let's just listen to the intelligence communities. This is what has happened, and this is why we have to be skeptical, and we have to look at what we can do on a positive level and stop doing the shit that makes Russians want to fuck our elections up more.
Yeah, well, no, Russia wants to screw up our elections because we care about the rule of law, and we're sanctioning the richest people who are stealing the wealth from all of the country. It's Magnitsky Act. We sanction
the rule of law. Who cares about the rule of law?
Anybody with a brain should care about the rule of law.
Brains, yeah, but I'm not talking about the people that are, necessarily in power in this country. I don't know if Max.
Yeah, here's the thing. I mean,
McConnell or anybody.
You can go through and you can say that the United States has made lots of mistakes, but you can look at the situation and understand at the time why people did certain things. It's the same as you can say you can look and see why Hitler did what Hitler did, Stalin, Lenin. You can understand why people did. Say that it's bad, and also not look at the present and say Russia, Germany is terrible because of the Nazis. Russia is terrible because of Stalin. And I'm not saying now those two are equivalent points, and the United States is equal somehow to the Soviet Union or to Nazi Germany. But I can those are extreme examples of being able to look at a set of facts and understand why, and say that it's also bad, and distance yourself from the present and realize that these two things can both be true and not the same. The United States made mistakes in Vietnam. We thought that we were fighting communism when in reality the people were fighting a civil war. That was stupid. We can say that, Obama, what Obama did to bomb, in Libya, basically no-fly zone or whatever, that was made on principled grounds to save civilians, and it ended up being, it ended up like allowing Gaddafi to get overtaken and died. Ended up to his death, and now there's Libya's crazy. So you can understand why these things happened, and also say that the United States still has good intentions, even though it's flawed, and say, screw you, Tulsi Gabbard, for equivocating the United States to Russia and what they did, because we do not propagandize now, at least around the United States government is not.
Be careful with your words.
Yeah.
You don't propagandize American values across the world.
Here's my words. The United States government. We have a very powerful culture. We have very pop culture and media and private companies that go do a lot of things. But the United States government, I do not believe, is engaging in state-sponsored information warfare on other countries around the world. Who would we do that to? North Korea is our biggest enemy, probably right now, Venezuela, China, Russia. Those are all people that we do not agree with. Go around in those countries and let's see if the United States is engaging in information hybrid warfare on those countries in order to achieve our ends. Are we doing that right now? Tell me. No, we're not. Okay? We're not. So we're not the same, Tulsi Gabbard. We're not.
No, but I think when you look at our entire history added up to everything up until where we are now, our efforts to democratize the world in a lot of situations have come across as propagandizing and straight up warfare. And that is something that someone like Gabbard wants to correct. I will agree that I think someone like her and Bernie are both a bit clumsy at times when it comes to foreign policy. I will agree. I don't think they're as well versed as I would hope, certainly. But and I see that there's a vast difference between what Russia did in the 2016 election and what we've done. But when you add it all up, though, we've had a much bigger role to play in, morphing the world in our image than Russia because of our values, because of what we believe in, which is good. But a lot of that has come across as invasion to a lot of people around the world. And this is one of the things that someone like Gabbard wants to correct, because she's fought in foreign wars. She knows the cost of war. And she's saying that we don't want to keep falling into the traps of trying to save the world through war. And let's pull it back a little bit, because we're still engaged in a lot of crap in the Middle East and elsewhere that doesn't need to, it's not serving our best interests. It's not serving the interests of our soldiers. It's not serving the interests of the people here back home. It's not serving anyone, really. It's ruining lives abroad. And I don't want any more lives to be ruined abroad with the American flag as the reason for that. People fighting with the American flag on their jacket, murdering innocent people and just engaging in, you can say hybrid warfare all you want, but all of our wars added up together is worse than what Russia did in 2016.
Okay, we're at the end of this show, and maybe we'll pick this up next time. But we got to talk in specifics to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, is the United States, is the American government, are we all the people, all Americans who are out in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria right now, are they murdering children and innocent people? Last I checked, I don't think that's the case.
I hope not.
In fact, I think it's quite the opposite. Syria, with Russia's permission, is going around gassing innocent civilians and dropping bombs and all across Syria, and that's why people are fleeing from Syria. And the United States government really doesn't have anything to do with that on a primary basis.
Thanks to Trump.
So I think that the United States government has made, and the military have made some mistakes, but and maybe people have like a little bit of fatigue about America, but at the same time, the world that we live in, the liberal world order, as imperfect and maybe inaccurate as that definition and nomenclature may be, the last 70 odd years have been the best time to live on planet Earth in terms of quality of life and just across the board. And it's also been the most peaceful. So so I think that a lot of mistakes. We're not perfect. The United States is a complex country that's tried to take care of itself and be the most powerful country in the world. And I'd like to see any other country do that flawlessly and have everyone love them always after that. But it's not, no country can do it well, or no country can do it flawlessly. And the United States is counts in that. And we've made some mistakes, but on the whole, I would say that between anybody else after World War II, I would think that the United States would be the best ones that we would want to do that job. And I think on the whole, they get a better than a passing grade. And let's just keep that in mind when we look at the whole big picture and say that, that's what I have to say.
Going forward, I agree. Let's limit the mistakes, but in limiting our mistakes abroad, you know how you do that? You stop being the world police, and you stop telling other countries what to do.
What about what though?
Let's help.
Do we stop
anything? Regime change, change their whole system of government.
What about North Korea's? What about North Korea's nuclear weapons? I mean, does that count as yeah, anything can be construed as regime change. If you want to say, like, get rid of your nuclear missiles, you shouldn't be that's regime change, because then you're going to go in and invade us. But do we want North Korea? Does the world want Kim Jong-un to have nuclear weapons? A nice, stable, supreme leader like that to have be able to do whatever he wants? And I mean, who's going to try to do that? I don't know.
We have though. So that is even Trump.
Yeah, but some people would say that's the world being a policeman, but we still want them to do it because we don't want them to be a policeman, but we want the United States to take care of us and try to prevent people from nuking the world. And we actually like the nuclear forces whatever treaty that is. And
Well,
so
that's what it comes down to, not nuking the world, right? I mean, obviously we don't want to nuke the world. So if that's what's at stake, then obviously you have to intervene, right? I'm not saying go to war, but I'm saying yes, you have to have some kind of diplomacy there. I'm not saying I'm not an isolationist. I'm just saying that we have to look at very closely about where our tax dollars are going and what kind of effect they're having in foreign places. You know, I don't want to harbor more terrorists. As a well-traveled individual, I don't want to go to places and have people hate me for being an American. So I don't think that's fair. I think it's like we're all people. I want people to look at America as like a cool place, not someone that bombed their whole family last year. I
yeah,
mean, this is I'm not talking about specifics. And you probably have a problem with that. I'm saying more of like a general ideology of where we move forward from here and what it means to be an American abroad. I don't want to be the nagging old dad that says, "Oh, you got to do things this way because we're doing it," and our shit's fucked up. We gotta look at our own. My whole philosophy is I believe that we need to fundamentally change a lot of what is going on in America, and a good way to do that is to focus on our own problems first, as opposed to what's going on in Syria, for example. And I know that's a whole it's a whole other thing, man. It's its own proxy war that has a bigger, much bigger implications. But generally, moving away from getting too entrenched in those kinds of things and reinvesting in what we're good at here, because I think America is failing, and I think you and me can agree on in a lot of ways it is falling apart, and we need to rebuild it. And you're not going to rebuild it by going to war 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 miles away, or joining the Space Force and fighting the Martians.
we need a moon elevator. That's what. We're not going to call it a moon base because that sounds aggressive. I think we need to count a moon gate.
Yeah, well, this show has been aggressive. Let's just fucking end it. Let's just kill it. What's your final thing to say?
Moon gate 2020.
Nice. Let me read another poem from my boy Emilio Bendaña Monterrey. Leads to Nicaraguan poetry here. I read Gringolandia last week. I posted the translation and the poem itself in the comments of the last video, which we got so many views. It was incredible. Let's see. Let me find a short one. Kind of long. All right, let's read. I really prepared for this. Say something else. Okay, all right, I'll say this. De Angeles by Emilio Bendaña Monterrey. He'd be so stoked to know that his poems are being read on YouTube. Shout out to Emilio. I hope they're doing well there. I got to hit him up. De Angeles, Virgen de Cuapa. Siempre, siempre tienen las vírgenes tres cosas: unos ojos bellos, una nariz amada y una boquita primorosa. Tú y las vírgenes y tú. Una rosa se parece a otra rosa. That was written in Bethesda, Maryland, March 10th, 2010. They used to live in Maryland. But they were my host family in Nicaragua. Shout out to the Bendañas. Yeah, man. That's the state of everything for today.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So that was that. And here is nothing.